Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. We interact with it every single day, but how many of us actually stop to think about the inner workings of organized retail?
It's a fascinating world, and today we'll be pulling back the curtain to see what really makes it tick.
We've got some insightful industry reports and expert analyses to guide our deep dive.
We'll be uncovering the strategies, the challenges, the triumphs, and the failures that shape this industry.
Buckle up, everyone. It's going to be a wild ride through razor-thin margins
Constantly evolving consumer trends.
and a landscape really dominated by giants.
But first, let's shatter a common misconception. Retail is not some kind of homogeneous blob.
Right, not at all.
I mean, you wouldn't lump together a hummingbird and a blue whale, right?
Just because they both have wings or fins or, yeah, I get your point.
Haha, precisely. There's so much diversity within this sector that it's really important to understand from the get-go.
So let's break down this diversity then. Help me understand the major players in the retail game.
Okay, well, on one side you have what we call value retailers. These are your grocery stores, your discount chains, those everyday necessities.
Ah, the places we can't live without.
Exactly. High volume, low prices. They got to keep those shelves stocked no matter what the economy is doing.
Makes sense. Everyone needs to eat, right?
Now, on the flip side, you've got what we call lifestyle retailers.
Okay, so we're moving away from the essentials here.
Precisely. Think fashion, think electronics, think, maybe some higher-end furniture.
The things we maybe cut back on when times are tough.
Exactly. And this distinction has huge implications, especially when it comes to things like economic downturns.
So value retailers might actually do okay, even see an uptick during a recession.
While lifestyle retailers, well, they might be in for a tougher ride.
Fascinating how even though they both fall under this big umbrella of retail, they operate in very different worlds.
Different worlds, different pressures, different strategies.
And speaking of pressures, let's talk about the elephant in the room, competition.
Oh, the competition is brutal.
I mean, I know it's tough out there for retailers, but just how bad is it?
One of the big challenges with this industry is the barrier to entry is so low,
Right. Pretty much anyone with some capital can open up a shop.
which means you end up with a super crowded marketplace, everyone fighting for their slice of the pie.
And then on top of that, you throw in the whole e-commerce explosion.
Exactly. Online shopping has only intensified that competition, especially for those value retailers we were talking about.
Because it's so easy to compare prices online now. Right?
A couple clicks and you can see who's got the best deal, which leads to these constant price wars.
So it's like this never-ending battle to offer the lowest price just to stay afloat.
Especially for those dealing with basic necessities, they don't really have the wiggle room to compete on much else.
So value retailers are really feeling the squeeze. What about lifestyle retailers? Do they have it any easier?
They do have some advantages, especially when it comes to things like brand loyalty.
Right. People are often willing to pay a premium for a certain brand name or aesthetic.
Exactly. But even they can't get complacent. The competition is still fierce, across the board.
So nobody's safe in this retail jungle.
No, not really. And that relentless competition brings us to another crucial point. Profit margins.
Ah, yes, those famously razor-thin margins. I knew we couldn't get through this conversation without talking about those.
It's the direct consequence of that cutthroat competition we were just talking about. Everyone's constantly under pressure to keep prices low.
So they're trying to attract customers, but also, still make a profit. That's a tough balancing act.
And it leads to these incredibly tight margins where every penny counts.
I'm guessing in this game, the bigger you are, the better you are at squeezing those margins.
You're absolutely right. In the retail world, size definitely matters.
Okay, I'm curious. Walk me through why the giants have such an advantage.
Well, think about it this way. When you're a large retailer ordering thousands of units, you have incredible bargaining power with your suppliers.
Ah, so they can basically dictate terms.
Pretty much. Better prices, longer payment terms, even getting suppliers to take back unsold inventory. It's a completely different ballgame.
The economies of scale are just insane. No wonder the big chains can often undercut those smaller mom-and-pop shops on price.
They're playing an entirely different game.
So we've got this incredibly competitive landscape, those tight margins, and then the advantage of scale. It paints a pretty challenging picture for anyone trying to make it in retail.
It is. But don't worry, we'll get into some of the strategies that successful retailers use to navigate these choppy waters in a bit.
I'm all ears. I definitely need some tips if I'm ever going to open up my own shop.
Haha, well, maybe we can get you there. But first, let's take a closer look at another crucial piece of the puzzle. Inventory management.
Ah, yes, the art of making sure you have the right stuff in the right place at the right time.
And in the right quantities.
Oh, right, and in the right quantities. Easier said than done, I'm sure. We'll dig into that after a quick break.
Sounds good.
Okay, so inventory management. Sounds pretty straightforward on the surface.
Oh, it's anything but.
Really? I mean, you just got to make sure you have enough stuff to sell, right?
If only it were that simple. It's a constant balancing act.
Okay, so walk me through this balancing act then. What are we trying to balance here?
On one hand, you don't want to have too much inventory sitting around.
Makes sense.
No.
Storage space costs money, plus stuff can go bad or become obsolete.
Exactly. You're tying up capital in goods that might not sell, and that can really eat into those razor-thin margins.
So then you just keep inventory levels super low, right? Problem solved.
Ah, not so fast. If you have too little inventory.
You risk losing sales.
Exactly. If a customer comes in looking for a specific product and you're out of stock, they're likely to just go to a competitor.
So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. It's like a retail catch-22.
It really is. And it's made even more complex by all the different variables retailers have to consider. Lead times from suppliers, seasonal demand fluctuations, you name it.
Sounds like a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get a headache just thinking about it.
And to make matters even more challenging, remember those famously low profit margins we talked about?
Oh, right. Inventory ties up capital, which directly impacts profitability.
Exactly. So mismanaging inventory can have a huge impact on a retailer's bottom line. It can even make or break a business.
No pressure, right? But our sources did mention that some retailers are turning to technology to get a better handle on this inventory beast.
Absolutely. Things like real-time tracking systems that monitor inventory levels across multiple locations, even different countries.
So they know exactly what they have, where it is, at any given moment.
Precisely. And some systems go even further, automatically reordering products when stock runs low based on preset thresholds.
It's like having a digital brain managing your entire supply chain.
Exactly. And this kind of automation is becoming increasingly crucial, especially for those large retailers with complex global supply chains.
So technology is helping to take some of the guesswork out of inventory management, making it more efficient and hopefully less stressful.
It's a huge step forward, but it's not a silver bullet. Even with the best technology, human judgment still plays a critical role.
Right. You need people who understand the nuances of the market, the customer demands, all those factors that an algorithm can't fully grasp.
Exactly. So it's this combination of data-driven insights and human expertise that really sets successful retailers apart in this area.
Okay, so we've talked about the fierce competition, those wafer-thin profit margins, the power of scale, and the logistical dance of inventory management. What other hurdles do retailers face in this ever-evolving landscape?
Well, one that often flies under the radar is the regulatory environment.
Ah, yeah, the rules of the game. Governments can really throw a wrench into the works, can't they?
They sure can. Policies can have a massive impact on how retailers operate, what they can sell, even how much they can charge.
Give me some examples. What kind of regulations are we talking about here?
Oh, all sorts of things. Tariffs on imported goods, for example, which can directly impact pricing.
Right, those can add a significant cost, especially for retailers relying on global supply chains.
Then there are things like restrictions on foreign investment, which can limit expansion opportunities for certain retailers.
And even at the local level, you've got regulations dictating store hours, zoning restrictions, all sorts of things.
Exactly. It's a complex web of rules that retailers have to navigate, and it varies significantly from one region to another.
Sounds like a compliance headache.
It can be, and it adds another layer of complexity to an already challenging industry. But hey, that's retail for you. Always keeping things interesting.
Too interesting, sometimes. I need a break just listening to all this. But you know what else we haven't touched on yet? The people.
Ah, yes, the human element of retail.
Those folks on the front lines, interacting with customers, stocking those shelves, keeping everything running smoothly. Let's talk about them.
They are the heart and soul of the operation. Without them, none of this would be possible. And yet, they often face their own unique set of challenges.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's dive into the human side of retail after a quick break.
Okay, so those employees, those folks working in retail, what are some of the challenges they face? Well, one of the biggest is high turnover rates.
Right. I've heard that retail jobs often have a revolving door of employees.
It can be tough to retain people, especially in entry-level positions. The work can be demanding.
Long hours, maybe not always the most glamorous tasks.
Exactly. And the pay, well, it's not always competitive, which makes it hard to attract and keep top talent.
So retailers are constantly having to recruit and train new employees.
Which is costly and time-consuming.
And on top of that, you have the whole customer service aspect, right?
Oh, that's a huge part of it. Dealing with the public can be, well, let's just say it's not always easy.
You got to be patient, you got to be friendly, you got to be able to handle difficult situations with grace.
Exactly. And all while trying to maintain a positive brand experience for the customer.
Not an easy job, for sure.
Yeah.
So it sounds like finding and keeping good employees is a major challenge for retailers,
It is, and it's something they have to be very strategic about. Because ultimately, happy employees lead to happy customers.
which leads to a healthier bottom line. Makes sense. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about diversification.
Ah, yes, a crucial strategy for navigating the retail landscape.
So remind me again, why is diversification so important?
Well, it's all about managing risk. Remember all those challenges we talked about? Intense competition, thin profit margins, those external factors like the economy and government regulations.
Oh yeah, it's like a minefield out there for retailers.
Exactly. And diversification helps retailers spread out their bets, so to speak.
Okay, I'm getting the concept, but let's make it concrete. What are some specific ways retailers can diversify?
Well, one common approach is to offer a mix of value and lifestyle products. That way, you're not overly reliant on one segment of the market.
Right, so if demand for, say, luxury goods takes a dip, you still have those essential items to keep things afloat.
Exactly. And then there's geographic diversification.
Ah, so instead of having all your stores concentrated in one region, you spread them out.
Precisely. You might even expand into different countries, tapping into new customer bases and hedging against regional economic downturns.
Makes sense. And of course, we can't forget about the whole omni-channel thing, right?
Oh, absolutely. That seamless integration of online and offline shopping experiences is crucial these days.
It's about meeting customers where they are, whether they prefer browsing from their couch or hitting the mall.
And providing a consistent brand experience across all those different touch points.
So diversification in terms of product mix, geography, and how you reach your customers. What else have we got?
Well, there's another interesting area of diversification that often gets overlooked, how retailers actually own their stores.
What do you mean by that?
Well, some retailers own the physical buildings where their stores are located, while others lease those spaces.
Ah, I see. So owning gives you more control and stability.
Exactly, but it also ties up a lot of capital. Leasing is more flexible financially.
So you're at the mercy of the landlord, right?
Right. Exactly. So a mix of both approaches can be a smart strategy depending on the retailer's specific situation.
Okay, so it's about diversifying the ownership model as well. Anything else?
Oh, one more important area. Suppliers.
Right. You don't want to be dependent on just one source for your products.
Exactly. What if that supplier has production issues or, goes out of business? Diversifying your supplier base helps protect you from those kinds of disruptions.
So spreading out your risk is the name of the game when it comes to navigating this retail roller coaster.
It really is. The more arrows you have in your quiver, the better equipped you are to weather the storms.
Wow, we've covered so much ground today. It's amazing how much complexity is packed into something as seemingly straightforward as, buying a pair of jeans or a carton of milk.
It's an intricate web of decisions, strategies, risks, and relationships.
And hopefully this deep dive is giving you a new appreciation for the forces shaping this industry.
Exactly. The next time you walk into a store, take a moment to consider all the moving parts that made that shopping experience possible.
It's a reminder that even the most mundane aspects of our lives are connected to these complex systems, global networks, and, the hard work of countless individuals.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of the retail world.
And we'll see you next time on the Deep Dive for another deep dive into a different corner of the business world.